Welcome back. I'm Nick Ravellis with the San Diego Opera Podcast. I'm really delighted that my guest today is the soprano who will be singing the role of Rigoletto's daughter, Gilda, Alisa Jordheim. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is so great to welcome singers to San Diego who have never been here before.
Yes.
And you told me in a brief story that you've visited San Diego
have,
before.
yes, when I was about 10 years old. So it's been a while.
But you haven't worked here yet. So
I have not. So this is
welcome.
the first time.
It's great.
I'm loving it so far.
And speaking with Stephen Powell, who plays your father,
Yes.
Rigoletto, he said that in a production of Rigoletto that he did in the past, you were the page.
I was.
Tell us about that. You were at Cincinnati?
Yes, so I was a graduate student at CCM at the time. It was 2011.
Now that's for our audience purposes, Cincinnati Conservatory of Music,
Yes,
right?
the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. We abbreviate it to CCM for short. So I was a graduate student at the time, and I joined the Cincinnati Opera for their summer season in 2011. And one of their operas was Rigoletto, and I was cast as the page. So in that production, they changed me from a page boy to a maid, so I was a female. I had my minute and a half of glory, and it was wonderful because I could spend the rest of the time just soaking up rehearsals and watching Stephen, and Sarah Coburn was the Gilda.
Oh, terrific.
Whom I just love. I love her singing so much.
Yeah.
So it was a really wonderful experience. But that's the first time I worked with Stephen Powell, and my introduction to Rigoletto as a whole show.
To Verdi.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, I had studied Verdi, and I had done some scenes from Rigoletto and other operas before, but there's really nothing like Verdi.
Yeah. But now this is an unusual Verdi role because it's
Yes.
not. This is not your typical Verdi soprano
No.
role, which would be like Leonora
Right.
or Desdemona
Yes.
or Violetta.
Absolutely.
This is quite different. So
Yes.
how do you categorize this voice type?
Well, I just sing it with my own voice. I don't try to do anything unnatural. But Caro Nome is an anomaly in the show, I think, because stylistically it's different from the rest of Gilda's music.
Yes,
I
that's
feel
right.
like Gilda, the majority of her music is very lyrical, and not that Caro Nome isn't, but there's this breathless quality to it, and the trills, which are characteristic of the aria.
Right.
And you don't see trills in the rest of the show for her. So I think Verdi was brilliant in that way because he depicted this naivete and innocence and breathlessness for her in that one moment.
And the breathlessness of being in love,
Yes.
of being erotically charged
Yes,
by
feeling
this
things-
stranger that she's
yes,
met at church.
Feeling things you haven't felt before.
Yeah. No, that Verdi was so brilliant at that.
Yes.
That's one of the things that really excites me about Verdi's operas, as well as Mozart.
Oh, yes.
Puccini, not so much. Puccini in a whole different
That's,
way.
yes, that's molasses.
Yeah, but those two composers, they had a way of characterizing people
Absolutely. Depicting the drama.
in such a, this is a great word, deft way. That's so clear
I like
and
that.
so simple and so direct. We get it right away. We know exactly who
Absolutely.
she is.
Yes, and I
right?
think Verdi's music really shows her development from beginning to end. I mean, from the beginning of Caro Nome, that youthfulness, to think of the Storm Trio, where everything just has to be, so strong and defiant is the word that comes to mind, but
yeah,
I'm not sure
yeah.
that's the right one. But
And well, out there.
yes, yeah.
You really
Strong
have to
in the conviction,
throw
for sure.
the voice, and the
Yeah.
orchestra is big.
Yeah.
And I guess you've got a similar challenge in the quartet.
Yes.
In the last act as
Yes.
well, because you're singing against three other strong voices that
That's
are
true.
indeed Verdi
That's very,
voices.
yes, very true. However, I think Verdi wrote it brilliantly because the vocal line does soar up higher, and those notes, acoustically speaking, they tend to carry.
Yeah, they work. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Now, also, not only your debut in San Diego, this is your debut as Gilda.
It is.
Right?
Yeah. A lot of newness.
So how's that going?
Well, I would be lying if I said I wasn't nervous before the first rehearsal. Stephen Powell's done this role many times before, and it's very new to me. I've done scenes before, but this is the first time doing the whole thing. So I just have to keep on reminding myself to sing the way I know, and to keep breathing and think about the character too. That always helps me.
Right.
Thinking about the text and what the character wants, and also pacing myself too.
Sure.
But also at the same time staying in the present moment. So it's a difficult thing to balance.
Mindful singing.
Yes, indeed.
Now, you spoke briefly about breathing.
Yes.
And one of the things that I want to do this year is talk about some basic technical subjects with some of you singers. For instance, just recently talking to Stephen,
Sure.
we talked about marking,
Yep.
which is a technique that you use in rehearsal in order to save your voice.
An important technique,
a
yes.
very important one. I would like to talk to you about breath. Where does your breath come from? And I want you to speak very personally about
Sure.
it, because I think most of us are probably aware that yes, singing is based on diaphragmatic breathing
yes.
and all of that. But I suspect that there's a lot more to it, and that it's probably very individual and unique with each singer.
Absolutely, because everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
For me, there are a couple things that I try and think of. I always try to breathe low in my body, but also breathing in the next vowel that I have to sing. So I prepare the space, as it were. So I think about the vowel, I think about the word I have to sing. I think of breathing throughout my whole lower torso, and also keeping my ribs expanded as well. So I think about all of that in the inhale, to try and inhale the next gesture, or breathe in the space or the idea.
Right.
So I think it's not only just a technical thing, but it also helps with character and the impetus to get what you want with what you're about to sing. So it's both dramatic and also technical at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think combining those two things really helps.
Well, and the more it becomes part of your,
Yes.
almost, it's got to be unthinking. It's got to be
Absolutely,
natural.
yes.
Especially when you're on stage.
Yes.
Now, I want to explore something just a little bit further. You said you want to get the breath as low as possible.
Yes.
And something that I've been thinking an awful lot in terms of breath with my yoga practice.
Oh, yes.
And your yoga instructor will talk about breathing actually from the pelvic diaphragm.
It's much lower than we think.
It is. I mean, people think that the diaphragm and they're pointing here, below the rib cage. Well, that's
Yes.
that's the respiratory diaphragm.
Right.
There's another one.
Yes,
and it's
absolutely,
even
yes,
lower.
lower, yes.
And you can tell a difference.
Yes, you can.
Between a singer who's singing from, the upper diaphragm,
Yes.
as opposed to really singing from the
Yes.
bottom.
Yes.
From the pelvic diaphragm.
Yes, and the interesting thing for me too is I actually prefer to move on stage. I'd rather, like, standing and singing for me, I get in my head too much.
Yeah.
So we staged Caronome the other day, and there's actually quite a bit of movement involved, and I am so happy about that, because it actually makes me focus on my breathing more, so that I don't start having breathing occur up here.
Right.
But I love just moving and thinking about breathing for movement, because that also helps me sing better, I think. And everybody's different with that.
Right.
I'm sure there are some people who would say, no, I'd like to sit on this bench and just sing this aria, which is great. If it works for them, fantastic. But for me, I feel like getting everything moving just helps so much.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. That the entire body.
Yes.
This is so important. The entire body is involved in singing.
Absolutely.
It's not just here,
No,
right?
no. In fact, everything from the shoulders up should be relaxed, focusing on diction and resonance.
Yeah.
But the motor of singing is actually in the core and in those lower muscles.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, all of the activity in piano playing.
Oh, yes.
Because as a pianist, I can say, I was always told, keep your upper body relaxed.
Yes.
Keep the shoulders down. The power comes from the shoulders and the lower back,
Uh-huh.
and it's all core, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yes.
Isn't it fascinating?
Absolutely, yeah. It all comes from the core.
How many connections there are in music and in musical speaking, in musical terminology about where sound comes from.
And you also think of intention too.
Yeah.
Usually intention comes from the heart, from the core. So it has a lot of benefit to think about breathing from the core, moving from the core,
Yeah.
acting from the core. So
Oh, I love this.
yeah.
What's next for you? What
So,
happens after San Diego?
A couple of things happen. I'm really excited to be an artist in residence at Temple University for a couple months.
Great.
A dear friend of mine and fantastic mezzo-soprano is having a baby, so she asked if I would fill in and teach her students for her while she's on maternity leave.
Oh, very cool.
So I love doing that. I love incorporating teaching in my performing. Both really help each other out,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And then next for me is Rossini's La Gazza Ladra. I'm singing Ninetta in that. So
It's an unusual
lesser known
piece
piece. Yeah, that's with Teatro Nuovo in New York.
Great.
So, and then there's some other things too that I'm not at liberty to say.
Oh yeah, you guys always have those things that you
but-
dangle in front of us. And
there's
can't
there's
talk
a
about.
Merry Widow in the future. So
wonderful.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to some operetta and
That's great.
yeah, I love doing an eclectic mix of things.
Yeah. Well, I having heard your voice in rehearsal, I'm so excited that you're here and so much looking forward to seeing you essay Gilda on the stage
I can't wait.
when we open next
Yeah.
week. So welcome again and thank you
Thank
so much
you
for
so
being
much
here.
for having me.
Okay.